your UNP4 job application compelling and powerful? Have you thought about it? And I would like for you to also use this live stream to see for yourself what is your criteria for making your job application as compelling, as powerful as you possibly can. If you believe that this is an important part of that process, because I can also see a lot of arguments and a lot of skepticism about how job application cover letters and CVs don't matter as much as other things. And I will not really entertain those skeptics, but I want people to always think about how do they make every part of their job application, whether it's the CVs, job interviews, and networking, all of them to be doing so great so that you keep increasing your chance of getting hired or promoted at the level that you would like to. And if you ask why P4, is because I've been supporting some of my clients to go through this process recently. So that's why I can see that some of them are continuing writing cover letters the way that we have always written. And I will talk about how that looks like. And I'm afraid that if everyone is writing like that, then we may not be standing out the way that we would fierce competition that we're facing against currently. So that's why I am using the P4 level. But of course, I'm also trusting that this will help you um, look at your own job application, whatever that level is, to be looking at, okay, what is my criteria that tells me that this is a very compelling job application, reasons why. And I want to give you sorry, is it four? One, two, three, five different criteria that you can use if we can use to uh, look at, is this the element that is in there or it's not, and then what to do about it. My name is Estela Hermona. For anyone who does not know, I'm a life coach for transitioning humanitarians, and I help people, humanitarians, transition within the sector as well as the private sector to being their own bosses. And knowing that a lot of humanitarians currently going through job applications and they're maybe freaking out about how to do this and how to do it best and how to stand out. And therefore, I wanted to give you these five ways to look at, or if you want to look at it as a criteria, use it as a criteria. If you have your own criteria, amazing. But I would just like to pinpoint what makes a cover letter compelling and powerful and what doesn't. And I will look at what are the things that not to do. It becomes more important to recognize in context, right? So let's dive in. The first one is, what doesn't make a cover letter powerful or compelling, in my opinion, and the way that I have seen now things working out, is that if it's descriptive and if it's just statements, it will not be strong application. So when I say a descriptive and statements, like it is a bit like, I'm passionate to be doing this work, or I'm passionate to contribute to this work. This is a descriptive way of saying things, right? That's what not to do. Unless, of course, we are authors of fiction writers, then maybe descriptive is very powerful. But in the job application, usually it may not be as such. So therefore, instead of saying I'm passionate about this work, or I'm passionate to contribute, or I'm a passionate expert, whatever the way that you described yourself, instead of doing that, my suggestion would be use an argument to say, I have done this type of work for this many years, context, and having seen the impact of in this way makes me motivated even more to be working on this work. Right? So you can see that I have turned a description of I'm a passionate expert or I'm a passionate professional or whatever the way that you might be describing yourself, I have turned that into an argument, right? As to how I have made it also clear that this is the reason how I'm an expert. I have also made it clear, shown impact of my work. So therefore, obviously, it is very logical because I have seen the impact of that work. So first way that you can scan through your own cover letter to see if you're just describing things without really arguing for your case, right? And before, by the way, writing cover letters, I think it's useful to really think for yourself as to what are my arguments as to why for this position, especially, right? Because I feel like we start writing things usually, and then we come up with arguments, and then it becomes like a bit smudgy and wobbly and all over the place. But if we first think about for ourselves, okay, what are my arguments for why I'm a great candidate? And then one, two, three, four arguments, then we can use the cover letter to talk about each paragraph to convey the message of the argument, the main argument, and then everything else becomes like a supportive statement in that in that paragraph, right? So that's just something that's helpful that I always ask my clients, okay, what are our arguments? And then I really want them to be thinking about it before we start writing. So the description versus argument is the first criteria that I would like to bring to your attention is the cover letter is more descriptive or it is more argumentative, arguing for your case. And if it's arguing for your case, then it might be more compelling than just describing what you did and how you did. So the way that I always tell people that it's the difference between us going to the restaurant and the chef bringing all the ingredients to us and saying, well, you do the cooking and making the dish versus the chef cooking the dish and bringing us the meal, right? That's the difference. Because when we go to a restaurant, we obviously don't expect the chef coming out and bringing us all the ingredients, unless, of course, it's a specialized restaurant. And saying, well, here are all the ingredients and you do what you want with it. That's really what we're saying is here are all the things that I have, choose. And when we do that, uh, people may not uh, remember you for something. They may not even be clear as to how to argue for case back in the panel discussion if it comes to that. And it will just make things a lot more like they will be lifting, even though they should in the panel, but still we want to as possible for them to be then saying, okay, here are the reasons why this person's amazing, right? And this is very similar, by the way, to advocacy work that we do as well, right? When we do advocacy work, we always think about, okay, what are our arguments and what are our solutions? Write the paper or the position on that. We don't just, I don't know, would be good to do that, or here are all the descriptions of how it should be and not really proposing a solution, right? So that's the same way in the job application. So the first one is, as I said, just versus argument. The second one is impact, right? And I keep pointing out this a lot of the time. And I know that it's a very paradigm shift for some humanitarians, and I can see that and understand that. But if you are making it very activity driven, know that this is not compelling or powerful. Because essentially what you're saying is, I coordinated this, I managed this, I did this, I did that. And always the question, right? But the more powerful way would be to showcase why we did what we did and what the outcome and impact was of that work, right? So an example of the impact is we worked on a certain legislation piece, and that legislation piece allowed now this category of people to be included in the national system and them getting the support they need. That is an outcome. Amazing. So think about your cover letter from perspective of, is it an activity that I'm describing, or I'm also looking at describing the impact of the activity so that you are coming across as someone who is result oriented, impact oriented, and not just activity oriented person, professional. Excuse me. And as much as we I used to also write in terms of activity a lot of the time, and then to realize that activity as such does not really tell much about our capabilities, our professional behavior, our professional expertise, unless we showcase how that we worked on led to the outcomes that we pursued. Okay. The third one is one time versus systemic. This is another criteria, if you will. You can use it, especially at level, because at the P4, usually you are required or expected to work on systemic issues and achieving systemic changes, whatever that systemic change is. But I also see that a mistake that some of the professionals make when they are transitioning, they end um, the one-time at work type of activity, activities that are considered operational versus strategic, right? Because in order to work on systemic issues, we need strategic thinking, we need strategic interventions, and all of that involves coordinating and working with a lot of different actors. And that is the level of work we want to demonstrate. And in order to do that, we need to really get specific as to what type of done and what the outcomes are, rather than showcasing more the operational side of things. And again, when you are reading the cover letter and when you zoom out yourself and look at, okay, is this coming across more as an operational person, or it's coming across more as a strategic, going on the higher level of advocacy and changes and working with other actors? That's how it's coming across, right? And that you can always tell by uh, like having read this cover letter, maybe, and then zooming out and looking at it. And when I look at those impressions, I often see that, especially humanitarians transitioning from P3 to P4, is they are more on the operationals. There's nothing wrong with demonstrating some of the amazing work and achievements, but still, if we are wanting to go for P4, we need to really be demonstrating our systemic thinking, systemic strategic thinking, and demonstrating our management skills that's at P4 is absolutely necessary, right? All of that needs to be there. Now okay, what is this one? Is this one, okay, the force argument or force criteria. Force criteria that I would like for you to consider is, I see that we oftentimes talk about, I have worked this many years and this many contexts and this many, I don't know, years of work in this field. We do that like a, um, what is the word I'm looking for? We list all of these experiences. Um, but I would like for you to think about if everyone else is writing that way, right? Everyone else is writing, I have this many years, this many uh, people that I managed, and this many contexts. If everyone just lists those things, then what would still make you stand out? And I was discussing this with one of my clients, and then we were discussing about how what would make him stand out is that he had several publications on that topic, and he worked on several systemic on that topic that yielded great results, and that's what can stand out, right? So even if everyone else is saying that I had this many years of work in this organization and this many countries, what would still make you stand out? And that's, I think, what you could be looking at instead of just keep listing things. And again, there's nothing wrong with it, and absolutely go for it. But excuse me, I think the fundamental question that we're not really asking ourselves is if everyone else is writing, then what is still makes you stand out, right? What is still something that makes you like, okay, this person has, and then there is a reason. And that I would like for you to really think about. Criteria, I would say, is the budget one. Budget or some numbers that you want to demonstrate, right? And I was also discussing with my client last week actually that I looked at how he was describing that he managed $8 million dollars worth of projects and programs, and I was telling him, do you know how the operation he's applying for, and he's applying for HQ position, do you know what the budget they manage at the HQ level? And he was telling me, well, I don't know. And this is the thing, is that sometimes numbers can backfire, I believe, and we just need to understand to like how to use the numbers, right? Because numbers might be compelling in some way, also they may be backfiring in other ways. So let me give you an example. So let's say that my client wrote about $8 million programs that he's managing. He's in the program, and he's applying for a P4 position in HQ. And in HQ, let's say the numbers are, I don't know, minimum, uh, I don't know, 100,000, uh, yeah, or what is it, 10 or something like this, right? So then you can see the ratio becomes so um like distant from each other, right? So my client saying 8 million and their people are managing, I don't know, 50 million or whatever other millions they're managing. Then I have seen that in the humanitarian world, we have this bias in some way where we tend to be in the program uh, field. I don't know, but we have this feeling of, okay, if I am at this level, uh, programs that are, I don't know, 50 million, then I don't really find the people who are managing 8 million um, up to the job kind of thing, right? And that's how it can backfire uh, in the application process. So that's why we need to be looking at what is the job of like the operation we're applying for, what are the money that they are used to managing, especially this position that you are applying for, what are the budget they are managing. And then if your experience does not match that, then you need to think about how to write it in a way that is compelling, um, and why it's still compelling, right? And we were discussing like he was coming from an operation where 8 million is considered big. And I was describing an operation, some of the UN operations in Ukraine, for instance, where I was in duty station last time. And I was telling him how the ratios are very different. Right now, it doesn't mean that, of course, he cannot handle those programs, I believe, but still, immediately when you see the numbers, people may have their own uh, biases getting activated, and therefore they may immediately assume things about you that you don't want them to be assuming. So you need to be careful about it. And the same goes for number of people you manage. If you are managing, let's say, up to 15 people, and then you are applying for a position where the number of people that you manage is, I don't know, 30 or more, then how do you want to use those numbers, right? Really like, I don't know, rules as to how to do that. But I just wanted to like bring to your awareness to be careful about how you are using those numbers and at least see what the numbers are at the duty station you're applying for, and then based on that, figure out how to argue for your cases. Okay, my criteria that I have seen oftentimes uh, as a way to make job application either powerless or like not standing out, or powerful and compelling, and at least goes through your cover letters and CVs through the of okay, does this include descriptive language or argumentative language, right? Arguing for my case. Does it include activity or impact? And does it include one-time work or systemic work? And does it include um, like saying like everyone else in terms of this many years of work and this many duty stations versus why do you still stand out? And then the last point is how are you using the budget numbers to your advantage, or it is backfiring you. So if you need to work on this, and if you'd like my support in getting you to make your application successful, absolutely come coach with me. There is a link below. In the meantime,